What are you doing? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Either you are, or I'll be skipping rope with your entrails. Ta-ta.
This podcast is brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Robots Radio. Games. Lore. Stories. Community. Just press play. Welcome to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, the podcast where we explore the amazing universe of the Elder Scrolls. Adventurers, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with my good buddy, Lotus of the Doom. Lotus,
hello.
How's it going, man? How you doing?
Things are well. This is going to be an interesting episode, mainly because, the Daedric Prince exists. You know, that's important too. But wait till we get to those artifacts.
The artifacts of Peryite. So yeah, we're up to P for Peryite, and this is we've been doing the Daedric Princes for a while now. We're getting closer to the end of the list. And so many of them have so much information. In fact, so much more information from than when the first time I got to go over these, like 3 years ago. The information has grown. Elder Scrolls Online just keeps on adding stuff. But then we get to somebody like Peryite, who is we've talked about mysterious Daedric Princes before, but I think, is mysterious the right word, or just not really, just doesn't come up that much? And so therefore is mysterious by lack of information?
Maybe a little bit, because Peryite is pretty unique just in what Peryite's known for. Kind of is sort of inconsequential, it almost sounds like. Oftentimes Peryite, we'll get into it, but is looked at pretty much one of the weakest, quote unquote, Daedric Princes, and it's going to probably not really help the case to fight against that. But for anybody who might have seen the movie Office Space,
I did not expect that this is where this was going.
Yeah. So
okay.
The guy that they keep taking is Stapler.
Okay.
That's like the personification of Peryite to me, where it's just menial tasks that the other Daedric Princes just kind of walk over.
Peryite is Stapler guy of the Daedric Princes.
Yeah. So
don't take my Stapler. I can't even do his voice. It's been so long.
I know so that's unfortunately, apologies to all the Peryite lovers out there. Shout out specifically to Livia from Quill and Vial, who I know is a big Peryite fan. Apologies in advance. But yeah. So that's my opening thoughts on Peryite before we get into the actual lore stuff.
So, okay, you're going Stapler guy. My analogy in my head was compost bin.
Okay, right? That's not better.
No, it's not better, but it's descriptive. Peryite is the compost bin of the realm of the Daedric Princes of Oblivion or whatever, right? The place where things go to be died, to die, yes. When they die, to be composted and cycled back into existence, maybe a little bit of that.
Okay. All right.
Well, here, let's get into it, because first off, we have to start with all of the wonderful nicknames or variations of titles. So Peryite is known as the Daedric Prince of Pestilence, disease and things like that. But also
very Namira feel going right out the gate, which is
right.
The other thing as opposed to the tasks that I was kind of alluding to.
Yeah. Rob is saying that we said Namira was the compost bin. Kinda. I mean, that's the connection there. They share
compost.
They're like buddies in the compost bin. They're like two different types of worms that live in the same compost bin.
Yeah,
but it's not really that analogy doesn't hold up.
It's funny enough. What we can go through the titles and then like we can kind of bring up the fact that this is why I think why Peryite gets dunked on a bit because Peryite tends to share a lot of things with other Daedric princes as opposed to being very unique, except Peryite's uniqueness is kind of the fact that it's, hey, I'm kind of just a mush of all these other things, which you'd kind of assume would go to something more like Hermaeus Mora or something, but it actually kind of falls to Peryite here.
Right. Here, let me clear up the analogy.
Yeah.
All right. Namira is the worms in the compost bin. Nocturnal is the fact that the bin is dark because those things have to be like in an enclosed dark space, right?
Great.
Peryite is the bin. The bin itself.
Well, at least it's keeping it ordered.
Right. That's the analogy. So anyway, not only is he the Daedric Prince of Pestilence, but also of natural order, and that's why I say that Peryite is the bin. This idea that the actual compost bin, the actual place where things go to, the pestilence and the disease and the way things break down, like the bin itself is responsible for that, right? That's the source of it. That's the place of it. Other titles include the Taskmaster. Interesting. Blighted Lord, Lord of Infection and Pestilence, Bringer of Disease and Pestilence, Lord of the Natural Order, Master of Tasks, Lord of, this is my favorite, Abundant Pus and Bountiful Vomit.
Nothing says kingdom in full control like Bountiful Vomit.
Bountiful Vomit.
Great.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Because what happens when you get diseased? You feel sick, right? And then you have pustules that grow on your body and you vomit a lot.
It's great. It's beautiful.
Wonderful.
It's just
wonderful.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It's all very nice.
And because Peryite is so into this whole disease, blighted disgustingness, when he does bless his worshippers, he blesses them with diseases. And we run into characters like this in the games all the time who are like, I've been blessed by Lord Peryite. Thank you, my lord. Oh, and they're like dying, right?
Yeah. I take a broom and push them over into the corner so they don't share their bountiful vomit with you. Bountiful
vomit. Yeah. So that's where we're starting off here. Now, like you said, he's also considered one of the weakest of the Daedra. I think one of the most interesting things about Peryite is the fact that his realm of oblivion is called the Pit. Maybe we should call it the compost bin, but it's called the Pit, and it's very difficult to get to. Not that any of the realms are particularly easy for mortals to get to. They have to know what they're doing. But this one is one of the few that I don't think we've ever been to. I mean, we've got glimpses of ideas of it. The idea that it resembles something like the Deadlands, lava seas and volcanoes and things like that. But even that is based on one quest line in Oblivion where we got to see a glimpse of like where an individual, one of his worshippers, went while trying to contact Peryite and get into the pit. But there's a confusion around that quest line in that individual may have actually not made it all the way to the pit, that they got stuck in the Deadlands instead, or that the pit was so foreign that we, the viewer in that situation, weren't able to see it for what it was. And so we related to the closest thing that we had reference to, which would have been the Deadlands in Oblivion.
Yeah.
It's this really weird concept, but this idea that like the pit, it's like, you're just not going to get there. It's like at the bottom of, if you were to stack the realms of Oblivion, almost like the circles of hell, the pit's at the bottom.
Yeah. The pits. It's the pits. It's the pits.
So I don't know. I think that this is a really cool concept. It also plays into this idea of, we talked about this before with the Daedric Princes, this play on the cycle of life and existence. This reference to, say, like the Hindu gods, and how the Hindu god of birth is also moves into the Hindu god of life, and then the Hindu god of death, and then the rebirth, that kind of thing. You've got a little bit of this with the whole natural order things have to go in a certain way. And one of the natural orders, one of the ways things happen in the cycle of life is that once something dies, it decomposes.
Right.
The idea that like disease and even though it's a disgusting concept to be blighted by something, to have an infection or a disease, is still just the natural process of a different part of the cycle, or a different organism like a bacteria or something like that. Like that's the life of the bacteria, is to spread the disease. From
their perspective, that's, everything. Because if they get cured, they're non-existent.
Exactly. They might be tearing something else apart and killing it, but at the same time, that's what's giving them life.
Exactly.
So,
which is sort of what we do here sometimes.
Well, I mean, being a biological thing that needs to eat other creatures in order to stay alive. Like, that's everything does it.
It's hard to have a perfectly symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. So now, the fact that we don't see Peryite very often, I think, is notable. And is it because of the representation to this like underlying feature of existence and the way things function, or is it they just don't write them in very often? Is it more of a meta reason? Like, I don't know.
It's very bizarre because like from a game perspective, the thing that is very weird about Peryite, and we kind of joked about it at the start, but like as we've explained, and actually chat has brought it up too from the live show, is there's so many crossovers to other princes. Peryite is really just like this amalgamation of like, there's a little bit of this and a little bit of this.
Well, here, let's list it out. Like, so we've got the disease thing in Namira. Right. We've talked about that.
Right.
We have the fact that Peryite looks like a dragon, usually.
Right. Which one of the things that it has, is periodically alluded to is that dragons, what with Akatosh being like, a very strong presence, dragons are very intimidating. The idea is to use a very strong, intimidating presence to kind of like mask the fact that Peryite could be on the weaker end of the spectrum.
It's like a flex.
Basically.
Like, I'm a dragon too, everybody.
Right. It's
sure, like, Peryite. Okay, go back to your stapler. Of course
you are. Yeah, that's very nice. Yes, I'm sure that's what size you actually are, Peryite. Like, yeah. So
you're big like Akatosh. Yeah.
Yes, very. You can control time. We're all very proud of you.
Right.
But so that's an immediate thing. Actually, one thing that I just wanted to bring up, just because Rob the Princess brought it up in chat, which I personally thought was kind of funny, was just when we were talking about the pit. Also, not to be confused with the ash pit, which is like even as something is similar or like arbitrary as the name is even shared in the realm with another. It's like, it's just very odd how little there is that is unique about Peryite that isn't shared with anything else. Because again, there's the idea of perfect order with Jigalag.
Right. And then the natural order, perfect order. Another one of those things that's like very close to the same thing, but not exactly the same thing.
But not exactly the same thing.
Right. Now, this could be one of those things where you have a hole in the cosmos for that specific concept. I don't even know the right words to explain it. So, for example, Jigalag is not present most of the time, right? Only at the end of every age.
Right.
After he's, back in the Merithic era, wherever, when he was, done away with, and then Sheogorath came about. But most of the time he's not there. So that leaves a hole for some form of order to exist. So if that's the case, then it would make sense for other powers to fill that hole in some way, and from the direction that they're coming to that location. So perfect order disappears. There's a hole in that concept. Something that manages some form of order, for example, Peryite, with the order of processes that are natural, then moves into that space and takes up more of the order concept of that. And that becomes natural order. because Peryite can't fully mantle or hasn't fully mantled Jiggalag to become something completely else. So instead, it's just kind of bled into that opening, if that makes sense. If you think of it as like a I don't know the best example for this, but almost like there's a bunch of game pieces on a board, and like you've got like maps, right? Like each of these is its own little nation or something, and there's one in the middle that was the nation of order, and it butts up against other types of things that are similar to order, and then you pull that one and you just remove that all the way from the map. It's just gone. So now there's a big hole. So anything that's close enough that has the ability to would eventually just naturally bleed into that opening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. But
I can agree with that.
To Rob's point, overlapping happens with every prince. Like all of these things, there's definitely overlap. It's just, it feels like Peryite, and maybe from a visual standpoint, Peryite's more in the middle, and so butts up against more of these other concepts.
Possibly, and it's one of the things that we were just talking about in chat, and it's one of the things. It's kind of weird that Peryite really is so. Ununique isn't really a word, but like it's almost like Peryite seems to share so much with so many that the fact that there's less that makes Peryite unique makes Peryite unique.
Is unique in its lack of uniqueness. Yes.
Right. Peryite's so interconnected with so many different ones, but it's a little weird because I find, at least in regards to some of the other Daedric princes, that's totally true. They do kind of share parts of them, and they're sort of known for a thing. And it's like there's, this is their realm, and it kind of bleeds into on the outskirts. Oh, this is where it bleeds into like another Daedric prince. Whereas Peryite almost seems like it's like right in the middle, like kind of like you mentioned, where Peryite is made of all these other things, and that's what makes Peryite, which is just kind of interesting. Like it's kind of a strange and rather unique Daedric prince compared to some of the other ones. The way Jiggalag kind of didn't fit the mold so well. I've always thought that Peryite sort of doesn't fit the mold quite as well either.
Yeah. It's almost like it was the one who picks up the leftover scraps that you would throw into a compost bin. It's like these themes just kind of keep coming around with these two concepts, right? Order and then pestilence. So what I also find very interesting about Peryite is we're told that Peryite is one of the weaker of the Daedric princes, one of the ones who has less of an impact. And yet some of the most influential events in the history of Tamriel are flus, are actual literal diseases that destroyed millions of lives, completely changed the balance of power in some situations. And, and we're dealing with the post situation in Elder Scrolls Online in the middle of the second era of, the Nahatan flu, right? That stuff happened, and now they're kind of dealing with the ramifications of that. But there've been another number of other flus as well. And to assume that somebody like Peryite didn't have anything to do with that would be, I don't know, ignorant, I would think, because
pretty much.
Pretty much. I mean, even if Peryite wasn't the main catalyst, there was some jumping on top of what was happening, going, all right, let's ride this out. I'm gonna contribute to this, or I want to be involved in this, or I will gain some worshipers through this something. Right? So to say that Peryite is the weakest doesn't always make sense. I guess it depends on what phase of the world you're in. Like if you're in the midst of a flu, then Peryite's probably very, very strong, very potent.
Right. And the concept of strength is very nebulous as well, where it's like, okay, well, Peryite's probably not going to win in a fist fight against
Mehrunes Dagon.
Sure.
Because he's got extra fists.
Right. But then at the same time, what if Peryite coughs on him a whole bunch and then he gets the sniffles? Then he's probably not going to be quite as active. So, there's other ways of measuring power other than raw power, but I always found the weakest analogy related more to just like the raw strength, which it's like, well, that's not, especially in the Elder Scrolls, that's hardly everything. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of ways to get to your end goal without needing to, fist fight the other Daedric princes to take power. Manipulation is, very important, especially based on the ways they do it, because they all have their own weird agendas going on.
Yeah, I have to wonder if there's also something to be said about their realm, their sphere of influence being less appealing to the others. Because there's that sense of like, you take on something else, you destroy its power, but you also take on its place. I don't think very many of the other Daedric princes would want to take on Peryite's control or realm or responsibilities.
Sure. I could see that.
It's not appealing. Like, I could become the master of destruction. That sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah, ooh.
Yeah, I want to become the master of any of these other things, but disease and natural order.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're really good at sharing sickness because you don't cover your mouth when you cough. And also you can itemize a spreadsheet like no other. Like, that's a weird combination of skills.
Yeah, you go, Staple Boy. Keep up the good work.
Exactly.
So, we covered a lot of this already, like through the details, but is there anything else that like stands out to you about Peryite?
No. So the only thing that I did want to make reference to, because we brought up the Nahatan flu, since that was in the Second Era, which is, the current time period in which Elder Scrolls Online takes place, which is, the current running live service game. In the Northern Elsewhere expansion from the Season of the Dragon, you travel to Lorecast and actually have like a decent amount of interaction with like cultists of Namira, who are like, again, kind of wheezy, kind of gross, and they are real happy about it. And it's right. Just,
yes.
The thing is, when you're going through the city, it's just like, it's kind of screwed up. It's just like, really, there's just bodies in the street of Khajiit and other people, because it's just like, at that point, they're so many were killed by the Nahatan flu. They it was like parallel wise, something probably like the Black Plague in real life counterparts, where it's like people were dying en masse so much that it's like, what can you even do with that type of destruction? And on top of that, by handling bodies, you're ending up becoming exposed to it and probably getting sick yourself, which perpetuates the problem even worse. Yeah. So it's like, I thought they did a good job with Lorecast. It's a public dungeon you can go to in ESO, and it's an interesting look at Peryite and her followers.
Yeah, go check it out, but wear a mask and gloves.
Definitely. Don't touch anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell you what, why don't we take a quick break? We'll thank our patrons, and then we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about Peryite and one of your favorite Daedric artifacts. Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
This is Miss Morlock, Dragonborn, and you are educating yourself to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show where we get to thank our patrons, and holy moly, a bunch of you guys signed up right at the end of this last month. Here we go. We have Murderous Pigeon, Alexander L., Wayne W., Andrew P., Katrina T., Keegan E., Jonathan M., Christine R., and the Nutmare. I don't know what a Nutmare is, but okay.
Just gonna accept it on face value.
Yeah,
and then look into it any deeper.
And then one more came in today. Titan. Welcome to all of you guys. Thank you for signing up. I'm glad you guys are here. Thanks for supporting the show. Let's see.
You enjoy the show.
Yeah, we're at a total of the number gets weird. It's the very first day, and so it's doing the whole like, hey, everyone's got to re-up for the new month thing. So the numbers a little bit off because not everybody re-ups right away. But 102 is where we're at right now. I have a feeling that's going to jump up a few more digits like tomorrow. But 102 patrons. Thank you for being here. We have to shout out our Daedric princes. We have Kira, Noodle Al Dente, and that's it. Just 2 of them right now. So 2 Daedric Princes. Thank you for being here and supporting the show. If you're interested in helping to support the show, then head over to patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast. You can check out all the different tiers, get ad-free episodes, get a whole bunch of the original episodes that got banked in the Patreon, and even get some t-shirts. We got some new ones rolling out this month. You can start collecting towards those every 3 months that you maintain a certain tier. You get stickers or t-shirts. So tier 3 for stickers, tier 4 or higher for shirts. The new ones come out this month. Get on that, because 3 months from now, you will be able to start getting deliveries of those every 3 months. So thanks again, everybody, for the support there. We also have some new reviews. I think I forgot to pull this up. I got distracted. Lotus and I were chatting before the show. I got distracted. No new ratings, or no new reviews this week, I should say. Ratings come in all the time, but if you do take the time to leave a 5-star review with a rating on Apple Podcasts, I'll read it out on a future episode of the show. And ratings on Spotify are also very, very helpful.
Yeah. All the stars are very kind of you.
Yes, all the stars. All the
stars are very kind of you.
Yeah, it helps people find the show and all that stuff. So thank you to everybody who takes the time to do that. I really do appreciate it. All right, let's move on with the rest of the show.
You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, dear child of cities. That is why the Night Mother loves you.
All right, we're back. Ben of Tamriel says, shirts are great. Thanks, Ben.
They are very good.
I do like the shirts.
I was going to say, you have done some fine artwork.
Thanks. I'm wearing one of the shirts I can have. I can't have the Patron ones, but I've got the Why Not Hermaeus Mora shirt.
I love my Why Not Hermaeus Mora shirt.
It's one of my favorites. That's up on the Robots Radio store. If you go to robotsradio.net, if you want to go check that out.
I was going to say, Hermaeus Mora himself actually has the shirt at this point.
That's true. Yeah, he took a picture. We sent it to him. Yeah,
I love that. That was so great.
Yeah, very cool. It was totally worth sending him a shirt. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So we're back. We're back with Peryite. We're going to get into the details here about some of the artifacts, but I did want to point out one fun little note that I think is super fun, because in ESO, the little dragon frogs, you can get them as like little companions. They come around with you. They hop around. They look really freaking cool. I never thought of frogs being like half dragon looking and how awesome that could look. They got like the wings and everything. They're very cool. Those actually do have a connection to Peryite, because originally, according to what they say in the histories, they were very large green frogs, the very large species of frogs that were about as large as full-size dragons. If you can imagine dragon-sized frogs, they existed. And at one point, they became envious of the dragon's ability to fly because they had wings and the frogs didn't. I guess the frogs have lots of feelings. And so they struck a deal with Peryite, supposedly, according to the story, in order to have wings, because Peryite looks like a dragon too and has wings. Maybe there's a connection there somehow. And it worked out. They got wings, but Peryite also made them really tiny. So that's the story of the dragon
frog.
Classic
Daedric Prince move.
Yep, classic move. Like a genie in a bottle. You get your wish, but you also get other stuff they didn't expect. So, yeah. So, tell us about your favorite Daedric artifact ever. This is your favorite ever. This isn't your favorite Peryite artifact. This is the favorite ever.
Yes.
Ever.
This is like one of my pinnacle all-time favorite Daedric artifacts, right up there with the Augma Infinium. Spellbreaker, which is a shield. It's weird because it's usually one word, and they kind of bring that up in the UESP, which I found interesting that they have a note of this. For some reason, sometimes it's separated and it's spell space breaker, but it's also Spellbreaker. Like I have no idea why. I'm assuming it's honestly a typo.
Oh yeah, I'm sure different writers you know how it is. You keep the word in your head and you go, oh, Spellbreaker. So I do that and I write it all one word, and you're like, no, it's 2 words, spell and breaker.
Exactly.
That's how I wrote it on my quest line, and we're like, oh no, game already got published.
Oh god, it's too late.
It's 1997 and Daggerfall's out already. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a Daedric artifact, obviously of Peryite, but it looks like a dwarven tower shield, and it's one of the most ancient relics in all of Tamriel. The shield not only protects the wielder from physical damage, but also from magical attacks by reflecting back the different types of magicka, dispelling curses, and or silencing any mage about to cast a spell at the shield itself. It's said that the shield searches for its original owner and will not remain the property of anyone else for long, which is kind of like a gimmick most of these things have, where they never stay in one place for very long. They float away.
Unless your character in ESO and you've held on to this shield for 8 years now.
As soon as it was put in the game, I believe I don't know the exact date that it was put in as a cosmetic into the game. Mm-hmm. I assume it was briefly after the dungeon, which we will touch on in a second, actually, that I want to bring up. But the shield was put in as a cosmetic because, again, they try to fudge in a way that more people can have them or whatever. I just have the thing. It's mm-hmm. I've got them all the games. It's always like one of my favorite shields. I think it looks really cool. It's a little weird because some people don't like the fact that it sort of looks like a radar dish, because it kind of does look like a radar dish.
Kind of.
I find that in games where it has an effect more than just the cosmetic, like ESO, Skyrim, for example, I find it pretty useful. It's really good in Skyrim, actually, because when you're playing on some of the higher difficulties, the amount of stuff you can just reflect back or oh man, it is great. I love that thing. So it's very practical, other than the fact that I just think it looks cool. And in ESO, it's actually a pretty major deal, very specifically for the dungeon called Scale Caller's Peak, in which Zahn, I wouldn't suggest, I'll be doing one of my, I've kind of fallen behind on them with real life, but soon enough, I'll actually be releasing the Dungeon Tales with Scale Caller Peak soon enough to go through the whole story, because it's actually rather elaborate and ties into another dungeon as well. But just for the gist of it, she's a dragon priest who, being scorned from her dragon, basically goes to Peryite out of spite, more or less, synopsis wise. And, at the top of this mountain, she has this big shrine with 3 dragon statues. And these statues are controlled by her with the blessing of Peryite, where during this final encounter, they spew poison across the floor. And if you're in it, it just completely melts you in game physics. But the idea is, she's holding this. She's the champion that's been chosen. And the reason I wanted to specifically bring up Zahn is, I really wish I had thought of this in advance. If you feel real creative, you can add it later, but it's a lot. Her voiceovers are some of the most notorious from Elder Scrolls Online, because she never shuts up about how much she loves the shield. So I wish I had the sound clip, but basically the running joke is always like she's swinging the thing around and she throws it like a weapon. But then you can use it to absorb the poison and survive the fight. But the whole time she's just screaming, "My shield!" every time she drops it, and she just keeps going with it. So it's a little memeable. However, upon killing her, you get, that's when they added it into the game. And I love it. It is cosmetically my favorite weapon, I guess, because the Augment Infinium's a book, so I don't really consider that a weapon.
Yeah. Well, shield. Is shield armor,
and a shield,
or is it
I guess,
a weapon?
could technically be armor.
Yeah.
But yeah, in any photos you ever see of my character in the statue that's far too far back to be in frame, that was crafted for me from the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, it's actually always holding a version of that shield, because I love it.
Yeah. And you still don't change the color of your armor to match it.
No, because it's glass armor and malachite is green, and
it has to stay green. It
has to be green, and I'm carrying a what do you call it? The
axe thing.
It's I'm trying to specifically remember what the name of it is, but basically there's a mixed version of it, but the idea is Stalrum from Skyrim, the blue ice glass stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a version, a Rekindleth is what they call it in ESO. Basically, it's frosted Dwemer. So it's kind of that effect over Dwemer. Mm-hmm. I don't mess with colors. It's just whatever the stock is. It's just I'm very, very my weapons don't match my gear because I pick them up along my adventures. So,
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a feast for the eyes.
Feast for the eyes. I feel. I'm so into like customizing everything and making it all look like it fits together. I can't do the not color matching stuff because it makes me feel like I'm in the middle of questing where I just pick up new items all the time, so I don't take the time to customize them.
Yep.
Right. And everything's just mismatched until you hit like max level or whatever in every game you ever play, or at least every MMO we're able to customize that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So, anything else about Spellbreaker?
No, that's pretty much all about Spellbreaker. I'd like to gush about that weapon. Also, from a practicality standpoint, I think it's a very cool artifact, and it makes up for the fact that a lot of times we go through this list, and Peryite's really kind of lacking in the artifacts.
yeah. There's, the other thing in the UASP that it mentions about artifacts is basically this. I'll just read it. It says, there are curios associated with Peryite, of which little is known of. Such no duh. No, like so much of it, Peryite is like, well, we don't know much about this.
Yeah, it's like I don't know.
Such as the bilious censer, the toxic cruciform. That's an awesome word.
That is a great word.
The golden scab, not scarab. Scab.
Nope. Scab,
like a wound healing over. They were last known to be in Gazmod, the Collector's possession. Although these theories have not been validated or elaborated upon by other sources, two other artifacts attributed to Peryite, Denstagmer's Ring and the Mirror of Hard Truths, are briefly mentioned by an interviewer during the Second Era, whose information may or may not be reliable. So
if you really want to, just so you know, if you really want to go digging for that, Gazmod is in the weird in between plane of Oblivion. It's actually the Deadlands expansion. That's where you encounter this, and he's just a collector, and his museum is just full of crap. So I assume, maybe these are on a shelf somewhere in there. I have no idea.
Right. And who knows if the stories actually match deep. Anything? And absolutely.
Right.
Denstagmer's Ring is interesting. It says it's very mysterious. All that is known about it is that it grants the user protection against various types of elemental harm. Even the name Denstagmer is a mystery. And this relates to events from the Third Era 427 with the Nerevarine. So Morrowind stuff. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot going on with Peryite. Peryite just kind of tends to be like chill, doing his own thing. Every so often a big disease pops up. Everybody gets a flu, and then he's got some worshippers, but most of the time he ignores them too. There's just not a whole lot of that going on. One of the things that is worth mentioning is that the few times you actually do see any direct communication with Peryite tends to be less emotional than many of the other Daedric princes, whereas they'll get upset about something or try to motivate you to do something for them. Peryite just tends to be like chill and polite, which seems kind of, I guess that makes sense, because like disease is just going to run its course. You don't need to force it. Things are just going to eventually decompose. Let's just let it run its course, man. It's cool. I wonder if he's like the high Daedra, the one who's just like, yeah, man, it's all good.
They were smoking a lot of incense in Skyrim prior to the whole quest line for that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he is a dragon. Puff the Magic Dragon is a song.
Perfect.
About drugs.
Yeah. So there we go. Boom. Done.
Yeah. Yeah. And most of the time when we talked about the image of Peryite, we've got this like kind of snake-like dragon kind of shape with a very long neck, very thin body. And that's been around from very, very early. Daggerfall.
Yeah. Daggerfall.
Yeah. And that hasn't changed that much. That kind of snake-like dragon. There is connection to a worm-like shape on occasion, but worm usually is associated with dragon throughout fantasy, you know, a flying worm or whatever.
Yep.
So that makes sense as well. And outside of that, there's just not a whole lot else to say.
No, Peryite really doesn't have an awful lot, just in the grand scheme of things. It's definitely much more like there's a lot of Peryite kind of just in the background as opposed to in the forefront. There's a few books that they mentioned on the USP, but I've kind of made reference to any ones I find specifically interesting. The books are kind of whatever as well. It's just Peryite seems like kind of a almost like a mystery in of itself, just on like some of the Daedric princes aren't as explored, and ESO has been starting to explore more with Peryite. And I'm curious if we'll see more in the future with Peryite, because there's something there to have a Daedric prince be so intertwined with so many other Daedric princes, but also not really be at the forefront of any of the Daedric princes for the most part.
I've got one other theory, one other funny little question here. So let's go back to the definition of words. The Aedra are our ancestors, according to the Altmer or Aldmer. Yep. And then you have the Daedra, who are not our ancestors, the ones who are not associated as being the ones we came from, that kind of thing. The Aedra are also known for losing some of their power or using and then being reduced in ability because they gave their power into creation in order for creation to exist.
Sure.
Whereas the Daedra did not.
Right.
And so they kind of sit on top of existence rather than within existence, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Natural order and disease seems to be something that's actually associated with being in existence. Does it not?
That's okay. All right.
So is Peryite a false Daedra? Does Peryite actually have more in common with an Aedric power? Something that works in the background, something that actually is fundamentally part of existence in a way? Or maybe Peryite is originally a Daedra, was not part of the inception and creation at the beginning of time, but through Peryite's influences in creation has actually started giving its power into creation for natural order and disease and those kinds of things.
That's an interesting idea.
And so therefore is less powerful than the other Daedras because part of Peryite's power exists in creation now. Because those things are natural. Like that's what natural order is natural, right? Like,
right. I was going to say it's in the word.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so therefore you end up with a being that's less active, like we seem to get with the Aedric powers.
Yeah, that we frequently find with the Aedra.
Right. People worship, people, call on them, but very, very rarely, maybe at the end of an era, you have one show up in some monumentous way and do something. But for the most part, they seem to be working more in creation than on top of creation. Yeah,
actively like contribute. That's an interesting take. I kind of like that.
Yeah, there might be something there. Rob the Princess also brings up, he says, I'm 99.9% sure he takes the form of a dragon solely to antagonize Akatosh. Potentially. Clearly. There's some debate about that. There's some conversation about why the dragon form was that influential in the early period of time, with the dragons. Was this in mockery of the dragons? Like, how did that work? But again, it's a lot of just maybe. There's
a lot of speculation around Peryite.
Yeah, maybe, but we don't really know. But yeah, that's what we got for Peryite, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe some of your thoughts on our thoughts. Thoughts on top of thoughts on top of thoughts. It's turtles all the way down. Turtles. Or should I say dragon frogs? It's dragon frogs all the way down.
Dragon frogs all the way down. There it is. Boom.
There it is. Lotus, you got anything else going on you want to share before we head out?
Not really. I was going to say, we're recording Tales at a weird time this weekend. So if you want to catch the live show and you hear this before we record it, we're actually recording it Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, because I am actually the odd time zone out this time because everybody's overseas but me. So we are getting to catch up. Arcaneer is back from the big ESO Tavern event from Gamescom in Germany. And we're having... Demon Cat, Daphne, join us on the show this week to discuss. They got to play Tales of Tribute live, like with the actual cards.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. Yeah.
And she streamed it on their channel, and it's pretty neat. So I'm going to hear, basically I get to hear all about the event that I didn't get to go to this time. So that's really the only thing on the horizon. Other than that, it's just kind of trying to find any time when I can actually get some game time in to play recently, because I would like to, continue on with a couple of the projects and playing the stuff, because I like games. So
imagine that.
Weird how that happens.
I hope you get a chance to play more. That's awesome. Well, we do have a big announcement. I've mentioned this before, coming up on Monday. So as of the time you're listening to this, only is a few days away. On Monday, we've got a big event for Labor Day. It's Labor Day here in the United States, Monday, September 5th, all day long in US time zones. We'll be streaming on twitch.tv/robotsradio, which is now where I'm doing all of my streaming. I've gone back to only one platform, not dividing it up, but all day long. At that location, we are getting together a bunch of the different hosts from a lot of the different shows on the network, and everyone's taking time slots and doing all sorts of fun things. Playing games. We've got a bunch of hosts playing Dungeons and Dragons together. That's going to be a lot of fun. Some live shows. And all of this is to raise money for St. Jude's to help kids because they need help. And
it's
an awesome cause. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I'm, as much fun as it is to set up podcasts and as experienced and how I feel like I'm good at doing that stuff, I'm not very good at wrangling people and making things happen in big groups. So I'll blame myself on just not having done this yet. But it's an opportunity. It's actually working out. We're getting everyone together. It's going to be awesome. Come hang out during the day. There's lots of people. All the different hosts are streaming on their own Twitch channels, so you can go follow their own Twitch channels, but then you can also watch on the Robots Radio one as like the main one. So just go to twitch.tv/robotsradio. The donation page will be up. It'll be very easy to donate. Hopefully we can hit our goal, and it should be a lot of fun. So come hang out with us on Monday.
Absolutely.
So that's what we got going on. I feel like I had something else I wanted to share too, but it now has fallen out of my brain. So, but I think that's it. That's it, Lotus.
I think so. Another Daedric prince in the books.
Another prince in the books. Bump,
or in the pits.
Bump. All right, cool. Well, thanks for being here, guys. Chat, thank you for being here as well. Good to see all of you guys. And we will be back next week with another regular episode. So I'll see you guys then. Stay safe, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach me on Twitter at robots_radio or Lotus of Doom at Lotus of Doom. Also, you can join us on the Robots Radio Discord channel. You can easily just search Robots Radio Discord on Google or check the description underneath the podcast. Also, this podcast is recorded live every week on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Robots Radio channels on Twitch, YouTube, and on Facebook. So just search Robots Radio on any of those platforms. Come join us. We'd love to chat with you while we record the show, or before or after. Either way, just come hang out with us. And if you're looking for more information about my shows and the shows on the Robots Radio Network, go to robotsradio.net for all the information about all the shows on the network, including the Robots Radio Rocket Club, where I help both new and existing podcasters to grow their shows, build their audiences, and create the best podcasts they possibly can. All of that at robotsradio.net. We'll see you next time.